Welcome back to your home garage, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate how easy it is to fix those unsightly rust spots on your car. And on this Fiat 500 I have a few that need some attention before the winter hits. Furthermore, the metal on the body of your car corrodes if the surface rust is left untreated for too long. So we're going to stop the rust by prepping the surface and priming the vehicle today, because painting is a separate process. Now I've already prepped and removed the body parts needed, so I have full access to the rust areas. And I have all the products needed for this afternoon's project. Now this may look like a lot of stuff and maybe even slightly overwhelming, but I promise you, at the end of your repair, you'll be incredibly satisfied. And the reality is, I'll only need a small fraction of all the products displayed. In addition, all these products will be listed in the description. This way you can purchase everything ahead of time and be absolutely prepared for your home garage body job. With the repair that you'll be doing, please make sure that you protect yourself with gloves, safety glasses, and a good respirator. We'll start by removing any silicone, wax, polish, grease, and dirt with some Eastwood pre-painting prep spread onto a shop cloth. Proper surface preparation is one of the most important factors to achieve a good finish. This cleaning prep helps to prepare the surface by removing any of those contaminants. So just wipe any of the surfaces clean that you'll be working on, and keep the solvent handy as you'll be using it several times throughout this process. Now with the surface clean, this is the time to put on the respirator if you haven't already done so. And of course, working in a well-ventilated area will only help, such as leaving the garage door open. I'm going to start with a very aggressive sandpaper on my sanding block. This is a 40 grit sandpaper because all I want to do is knock off all that loose rust. With light pressure, just start sanding the affected areas. And start with really short strokes until you start to build up your confidence. You'll quickly start to notice that with the light sand and 40 grit sandpaper, it'll start to remove all the paint and the rust that bubbled to the surface. Take your time with this process as you're not under the clock, and just keep in mind that you want to keep the repair to a minimum, so only sand the immediate affected areas. With the big and loose stuff out of the way, I'm going to move to a drill sander to speed up the process. You can definitely keep using the manual sanding method, but for a quicker afternoon, I'm switching to my drill with a sanding wheel. But again, there's nothing wrong with sticking with sandpaper and a sanding block. For some people, the manual approach provides a lot more control, as it's really easy to lose control of the drill and touch a piece of bodywork that never needed to be repaired. Just use whichever method is more comfortable for you, because either one is equally as good. The goal here is to remove all the rust to expose the bare metal. So with that in mind, you may find yourself using a combination of power tools and manual sanding block. Just find the right combination for you to expose as much of the bare metal as possible. Now I'm going to switch to a wire wheel brush so I can get into the contours just a little bit better. This is a job that takes patience, so just take your time and enjoy the fact that all that rust is disappearing. If any rust is left behind, even the smallest spot, it will spread again and all your hard work will be ruined. Rust is a type of corrosion that occurs on metal surfaces when iron reacts to oxygen and water. The chemical reaction that causes rust is called oxidation. The oxidation process eats away at the metal and creates visible rust on the metal surface. When the metal is exposed to any type of moisture, even humidity in the air, the iron atoms in the metal react to the oxygen molecules in the air to form iron oxide, also known as rust. Now don't worry about it being smooth. That's not the effect that you're going after. The point of this process is to expose as much of the bare metal as possible. And keep making the work area as big as you need. If you see the rust spreads past the original work area, just keep going until all of it's removed. Here's a closer look of exposing all that bare metal. And you can really see how the metal pitted from that surface rust. Now, if you still see a little bit of rust left in your process, just keep going at it with the sander. Along with the trunk area, I'm also working on a few other areas around the wheels. Once you have all the tools out, it's just a lot easier to tackle multiple areas. Here's my back fender, which has a little bit of a hole, but we're not going to worry about that for now. And here's the panel just under the driver's door. And I'll be showing you the progress of each one of these additional areas, even though we're primarily focused on the trunk lid. With all the visible rust removed, go ahead and clean the area once again with Eastwood pre-painting prep. If you happen to notice any remaining rust spots, just repeat the sanding process because the body filler needs the bare metal to adhere to. After your sanding process, you may notice a hole. Now, it's not uncommon for rust to eat right through and cause a hole, but we have a fix for that. Just get an adhesive stainless steel sheet metal body patch, which looks like this one, and it can easily be cut down to size. This will give your fiberglass body filler something to hold on to. These body patches also help to provide strength back to the body panel. Sorry that my hand's in the way, but I'm just shaping it to size, and then I'll insert it with a screwdriver. And here's how small of a body patch that's required. Insert that small body patch behind the hole, then continue to shape it so all the sharp edges are behind the main body panel. It's the mesh in the body patch that your fiberglass filler will bond to. I'm just helping to shape it and also put it into position with a standard screwdriver. Because I had all that pitting and of course that hole, I'm going to use a fiberglass body filler to give it extra strength. The directions or Coles notes are as follows. This product is reinforced with short strands of fiber. Thoroughly remove all dirt. Use 40 or 80 grit sandpaper to remove all paint. This kit also comes with a cream hardener, and you can always buy more hardener separate if you have extra body filler, but no hardener. For mixing, you want to try to pour a 4-inch puddle of filler as per the instructions. I'm just using a stir stick to help with the process of getting the filler out of the can. And here is my approximate 4-inch puddle of filler. Now it doesn't need to be exact, as the ratio gives you a little bit of wiggle room. Now I'm just flattening this before I add the creamer, but once again, a 4-inch puddle. Now take the creamer hardener and knead it to soften it. To get the right mixture, just place a ribbon across the diameter of the 4-inch puddle. Mix it thoroughly by pressing the air out of the mixture. Try not to stir it. What you want to do is achieve a uniform color so the hardener is completely mixed into the filler. Once mixed and you're satisfied with the color, which basically means you're not seeing the hardener as a separate product, then you're ready to apply it. With your filler thoroughly mixed, you're going to place a healthy amount of body filler onto your spreader. Now force it into the grind marks, the cracks, holes, and voids, and don't worry about being gentle. This is not the stage where you want to use the product sparingly. Place a generous amount of body filler on the bare metal because you want to ensure you have everything covered and coated. Also, you want to press in the body filler with some sort of pressure because you want to remove all the excess air bubbles. Here is the same application, but this time we're filling in the hole. So off camera, I ended up getting caught into a conversation and let the filler dry on me. As you can see, it's now clumpy and very difficult to work with. Even trying to use any of the product in the center of the 4-inch puddle has just dried. So the bottom line is, here's a classic example of just waiting too long to use or apply the product. So I'll just use the spreader to scrape off the excess and make another batch off camera using the same technique I showed you before. Here's a new batch of body filler, and this time I won't get distracted to waste any more product. Once again, use a liberal amount and don't worry about making it neat. It's more about getting it into all the grind marks, cracks, holes, and voids. Once you're satisfied with the coverage, just let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes before we start the sanding process. As we're waiting for the filler to dry on the car, it's also drying on your mixing board. The easiest way to clean it is to crack or scrape it when it's dry. As you can see, the drier it becomes, the easier it is to remove. With the body filler drying for 15 to 20 minutes, just ensure it feels dry to the touch because you don't want to start sanding wet body filler. With your sanding block, start to knock down all those high edges. You're not looking for smoothness at this point, just get rid of all the noticeable high spots. Smooth comes later. Pay close attention to any contours or lines in the body panel and sand the filler to maintain those contours. And this isn't a perfect science. If you happen to sand too deep at some point, you can always apply a thin layer of body filler and start again. The main goal at this point is to sand the body filler and try to maintain the contours of the panel. Don't worry about making it look perfect at this point. We still have another 2 layers of body filler to go on, so just make it smooth to the touch and blend it into the paint as best as possible. Use a rag to remove all the excess dust around the body filler. This will allow you to see and feel any areas that need additional sanding. And here's what the other areas look like after a rough sand. You can see how the body filler is already starting to blend into the body panel and more so fill in the hole that we had to patch. This is the area under the driver's door after the fiberglass body filler was sanded. Now it's all starting to look good, so let's move on to the next step. Now we move to a lightweight body filler. This is going to help fill in the imperfections caused by the heavy sanding of the fiberglass body filler. Mixing is exactly the same. Start with a 4-inch diameter puddle. Knead the hardener that came specifically with this kit. And place a bead across the diameter of the body filler. Similar to before, mix it thoroughly by pressing the air out of the mixture. Try not to stir it. What you want to do is achieve a uniform color so that the hardener is completely mixed into the filler. Once mixed and you're satisfied with the color, which basically means you're not seeing any of the hardener as a separate product, then you're ready to apply it. And you'll be able to feel how less dense and how easy it is to move this filler on your mixing board compared to the fiberglass filler. That creamier texture is what you want, which gets you a smoother finish. Now it's ready to be applied. So just like before, apply it in thin layers by forcing it into the remaining marks, scratches, and cracks. And don't worry if you apply a liberal amount because it will be sanded, and follow the contours of the body panel so your repair takes on the correct shape. Here's what it looks like after that coat of lightweight body filler. Now let it cure for approximately 20 minutes along with feeling dry to the touch. With it fully dry, we can now go back to sanding. This time we'll move up in grit because we want something less aggressive and smoother finish, so I'll start with a medium grit and then move to a fine. Followed by a 400 grit sandpaper to finish off this part of the process. So really take your time because you want it to feel smooth and start to look more refined. Now let's move to the fine sanding block. And now I'm going to place a 400 grit sandpaper around my sponge sanding block. And the reason I'm placing the sandpaper around a sponge is that sponge will start to even out the pressure around all the contours. This is now starting to feel really good, so keep knocking down all those high spots to the touch, and of course blending in the edges so the transition feels seamless. I still had a few high spots, so I'm just going to use a firm sanding block, but still with the 400 grit sandpaper. This is where the combination of multiple tools really comes in handy. Of course, now take the time to wipe down the surface with a rag so you can see and get a better feel for the sanded area. With all that fine body filler dust, you can see why a respirator is needed. Here's a closer look at the work area after the 400 grit sanding. Now this is starting to feel really smooth. Now keep in mind there's no time limit to this, so keep sanding as much as needed. And what's really key is to keep moving your hands in different angles so you feel everything. Now take a look at the hole repair. I'm starting to forget exactly where it was. So definitely all the troubled areas are starting to take shape. And of course, here's the last spot, the rocker panel just under the front door. Even after the lightweight filler, you will still have imperfections, though you can't feel them. That's where this Everglaze and spot putty comes in handy. Now this does not have to be mixed, so you actually save a step. Simply apply it to the spreader and repeat the same process as the other two body fillers. Look at how just a small amount spreads to fill in all the remaining imperfections. Keep in mind you will be sanding this once more, so make sure you have excellent coverage over the entire work area. With the areas fully covered, just relax and let it set for approximately 20 minutes, and of course, dry to the touch. Once again, here are the other troubled areas that I'm working on at the same time. While the spot putty is drying, this is a good time to clean off that mixing board as the lightweight body filler hardened even further. As you can see, it just flakes off for an easy cleanup and the smaller areas scrape easily. This of course makes your tools reusable for the next bodywork job. With the spot putty fully dry, I'll start with my 400 grit to sand down all the high areas. And this really won't take a lot of effort to sand it down to a smooth finish. After a quick sanding, here's what it looks like. Now we get to clean the area and remove all the fine dust because we have to prep it for primer. And everything is looking good and smooth to the touch. Here's a spot that feels just a bit too high, so I'll take the sandpaper to it. Here's a close-up of the resanded area, and as I've mentioned before, there's no time limit to this, so you can always keep adding more putty and sanding as much as possible. Here's the visual of the other areas that look and feel really good now. Keep in mind, there used to be a hole somewhere around here. And of course, a quick look under the driver's door. So I'll be using a black filler primer. This isn't just a regular primer. This fills even more of those imperfections that we had difficulty seeing or feeling, which will help to make the final paint look better. In preparation of the final step, I'm going to use my leaf blower to get rid of any of the dust that can affect the primer stage, followed by another wipe to ensure the affected areas are thoroughly clean. Now that I'm ready for primer, I've gone ahead with the taping prep. Rather than taping paper to the body, which in turn creates hard lines that need to be sanded, an old trick is to place something with a radius around the area that you'll be spraying. You can easily make that radius out of 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. As you can see, I have it all around the areas that I'll be spraying. So what the radius of the paper does is it softens the edges of the spray, which help to blend in the primer. As the radius spans the spray, it doesn't create those hard lines caused by taping, which you may have experienced in the past. With the primer, make sure you go in different angles to capture a full coverage, and paint in long strokes that go past the spray area. This allows you to have a smooth spray on the areas that count. Case in point, have you ever experienced random splotches of paint when you first press the nozzle of a spray can? By using longer strokes, those blotches of paint go on the paper versus the car, which in turn gives you the best opportunity for a great outcome. Now that the primer is dry, go ahead and remove all that protective paper. With all the paper removed, the main focus here is to ensure that the primer didn't create any extra work by giving you any of those hard lines. And we don't have any. The small radius on the paper softened the entire outer edge. Now, because this is the first coat of color that went onto the body, it reveals any imperfections in the body filler that remained unseen or that you couldn't feel. But don't worry about that because it still needs to be sanded with a fine grit sandpaper before it can accept any paint. You've basically taken it to the point where you can continue yourself or turn it over to a professional to do the final sand and paint. Either way, all the bodywork is done and you've saved yourself a lot of money. At this point, you fixed all the rust spots and prepped your car for the next stage, which is paint. There you have it, all the products and processes needed to fix those pesky rust spots that make for an unsightly vehicle. So make sure you help to keep this channel going by hitting that like button, sharing this video with a friend, and please comment below as I reply to all. Plus, don't forget to subscribe. And we'll see you next time on your home garage.